Most WordPress agencies go to WordCamps for their WordPress events. In fact, I'd argue that most WordPress people in general go to WordCamps. And I get it. Having organized dozens of WordCamps myself, there are wonderful events for anyone working in the WordPress ecosystem within WordPress. But there's a completely different set of conversations happening elsewhere. And if you're not in those rooms, I think you're missing context. I think you're missing out. I think you're missing stuff that directly affects the work you do every day. And to have that full context, the full WordPress context, the context you need as someone working in an agency or owning a WordPress agency, to have that full context, you need to go to events like the CloudFest WordPress Summit. And that's what this video is about. I'm going there this week. I'll be joining the hackathon that happens prior to the main event. So that happens on the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I'll be speaking as well on the WordPress Summit on Monday. The main event, the CloudFest main event, is actually on Tuesday. But me speaking there is not what I really want to talk about. What I want to talk about is why events like this exist and why that actually matters if you're building WordPress sites for clients. Because once you understand that, it changes how you make decisions across the board for any project that is building upon WordPress. So most WordPress agencies, they kind of operate in one of two versions of a bubble. A WordPress-specific bubble and a non-WordPress bubble. Now let me explain what the difference is between those bubbles and what they are both missing. The WordPress bubble is essentially the bubble that is very closely listening to whatever is happening inside the WordPress project. They're very much in tune with what's happening in core, new features coming. They subscribe to the newsletter. They are active on X, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, in all these different types of subsets of WordPress communities. That's one version. That's one bubble. The other bubble, the non-WordPress bubble, is essentially the same type of agencies in the sense that they build with WordPress, but they're not really connected to the ecosystem. They're not really connected to the core of the project. So now that you understand those two bubbles, it should be clear that I've not mentioned them talking to any other types of layers, specifically the hosting layer, other than support, of course. But there's a lot to be learned from talking directly to hosting companies, as well as other infrastructure providers, as well as other solutions that provide platform bypasses for certain constraints. But there's also the people building the systems underneath WordPress. All of those conversations you're not having with those types of people, that creates blind spots and room, therefore, for learnings and growth. And these learnings, these growth opportunities aren't small blind spots because they show up in a multitude of ways and are very easy to misdiagnose because you're not seeing the full picture. Performance being one. And yes, that is the topic I'll be speaking on at CloudFest. If you find yourself mostly talking to clients, mostly talking to your own team, and maybe a few people outside of that circle, you are still rarely in a room where everybody is dealing with the same kind of challenges you are, but at a different level or from a different direction. So a lot of the time, you're figuring things out in isolation. You're second-guessing your decisions you make because you're not really sure what the best solution might be or what the options are. You're wondering how others are handling similar situations, I'm sure. But mostly, you're not really knowing what good looks like at the next level. And that slows down everything you do inside your agency. So you're making decisions, but without enough context from the people who are operating at the level you want to be at. So what an event like the CloudFest WP Summit does, it allows you to change all of that completely. Because suddenly you're not figuring things out alone anymore because you are in a room where people from all different layers in the larger context of WordPress, so that includes the web, that includes hosting, that also includes the stuff happening in front of your hosting, but all those people from different layers are in one place. And you'll have conversations across all the various roles that you'll find in those layers. And it's what's good to know is not just WordPress, right? It's everything around it. CloudFest as the main event is essentially geared towards anyone working on the web, with the web. And there's roughly 10,000 people coming there for the main event. So, it's a lot more than just WordPress. So when you're in the room with all these types of people, you start hearing the same problems described from completely different angles, and you start seeing and hearing solutions. You start seeing how all of the pieces actually connect. And there's a big difference between learning something, maybe you're reading a tutorial here or there, but actually being in the room where everybody already operates at the level where you want to be and is happy to share all their learnings with you. So once you see that, you realize that a lot of what we treat as WordPress problems or challenges, they aren't really WordPress problems at all. They're system problems. And that shift alone changes how you approach performance, hosting, heck, even how you build the whole site from start. And this is exactly why WordPress events like the CloudFest WP Summit Day, why it exists. It's smaller than the main event. Don't get me wrong. This is not 10,000 people at that event. There's about 800 to 900 people. So it's smaller, it's more focused. And importantly, there are different types of conversations happening at the Summit Day than what you would typically see at a WordCamp. So it attracts a very specific type of conversation. It's not just about the talks. It's also about the conversations around them. Now, these types of events are not for everyone. I think they're largely for anyone working at an agency, the slightly more advanced type of developers, people dealing with real-world complexity in one way or another. So if you're working on projects where decisions actually have large consequences, this is the actual type of event that you want to be. This type of event is less so for beginners or hobby projects. But yeah, CloudFest WP Summit is extremely valuable to be at, and your presence is required because you will make the room more complete, and there will be more opportunities to learn from everyone if we all start going to these types of events more. Events like this don't just give you knowledge. They change how you see the entire WordPress stack. So let me explain what I mean with the entire WordPress stack here, because it's not just whatever's happening inside your WordPress installation. It also includes what's happening on the server level. It's happening with adjacent services communicating with your WordPress site, as well as what's happening in front of your WordPress site, so the edge. And once you've learned about that kind of depth of what WordPress is and what it can do, you can't unlearn that, right? That's just added value in so many ways. So in turn, all of these conversations, listening to the talks, everything you absorb there changes how you build, how you troubleshoot, and how you make long-term decisions. So if you're serious about building better WordPress projects, especially at an agency level, you need to expose yourself to these types of conversations. Whether that's CloudFest or something similar, getting into the right rooms matter. So, see you there.